You're watching Doc's Bakery, and today we're making homemade cream puffs. My mom's famous recipe.
Thank you for tuning in to Doc's Bakery. I appreciate all the likes and follows. Please do that. I would really appreciate it. All right, so today we're doing cream puffs. I'm going to break down all the recipe here right now. So go ahead and record this section or take screenshots of each thing, whatever. Okay, so over here, this is going to be for the icing later. It's going to be a chocolate topped ganache icing. So we're going to use 6 tablespoons of butter. We're going to use a half a cup of cocoa, roughly 2 cups of powdered sugar, and roughly a half a cup of whole milk. We're going to alternate a little bit back and forth until we get that right consistency at the end. For the puff pastry dough, it's a full stick of butter with a full cup of water. We're going to bring that to a boil. We're going to add a cup of flour. After that, we mix that up. We're going to add 1 egg at a time for a total of 4 eggs. Okay, that's going to make our puff pastry batter. Next, we've got the filling. Today we're doing a chocolate pudding filling, which is my favorite. And that is 3 packed tablespoons of cornstarch, a 1/4 cup of cocoa, 2/3 cup of sugar. We whisk that together. We add 2 1/4 cup of whole milk. We whisk that together. We cook it in the microwave for 2.5 minutes, and then whisk it, 2.5 minutes, whisk it, maybe 2 more minutes, depending on how much more time we need to get the right thickness of the pudding. Then we add our 2 tablespoons of butter and a teaspoon of vanilla. The icing also gets a teaspoon of vanilla at the end. Then we have our heavy whipped cream, which also goes inside the puff pastry. So we have heavy whipping cream, a full carton of 16 ounces with a half a cup of sugar, and also a teaspoon of vanilla goes in that. Now, a lot of this calls for like hand mixing and all that stuff. I kind of cheat. I like to use the KitchenAid mixer. So that's what we're going to be using with our paddle blade attachment again. So this thing is awesome. All right, so let's get cooking. First, we're going to bake at 375. We're going to turn our stovetop on and bring that water and butter mixture to a boil. All right, now that that's boiling, we're going to turn the stove off and we're going to bring that over to our KitchenAid mixer. As you can see, just poured it all into the mixer, and then we're going to add our cup of flour into the mixture. Then we're going to give this started. Put it on stir. The batter starts to form. And then you add your eggs. 4 eggs, but 1 at a time, guys. 1 at a time, making sure it's thoroughly mixed in between. Alright, once it's nice and smooth, eggs thoroughly mixed in there. That's the batter we're looking for. Alright, and then we're going to use a scooper and scoop out dollops onto a greased baking sheet prepared to go in the oven. Give it a good stir, make sure all the ingredients are well incorporated. Should be this consistency. Using a full cookie scooper, just putting a good amount of the batter onto the baking sheet. Alright, now that they're on the pan, we're going to put them in our 375-degree oven for 20 to 23 minutes or so until they're nice and golden brown and fluffy. While the cream puffs are baking, we're going to go ahead and make our filling. This is the chocolate pudding. So we're going to mix all those dry ingredients together. Now we're going to add our 2 1/4 cup of whole milk. Now that that's mixed together, we're going to go put it in the microwave. So that's going to go in for 2.5 minutes. Been 2.5 minutes, so we're just going to whisk it up, and then we're going to put it back in the microwave for another 2.5 minutes. Alright, it's been another 2.5 minutes, and as you can see, it's starting to thicken up. Not quite the consistency we want, so we're just going to mix it up, and then we're going to put it back in the microwave for another, looks like maybe another minute. Maybe a minute and a half. Alright, now that it's been heated up, it's time for the vanilla and the butter to go in. We're just going to stir that up until all the butter's melted into that chocolate pudding. So good. Freaking love chocolate pudding by itself. It's freaking amazing. Now that our butter and vanilla are incorporated, it's ready to go inside the puffs. Next, we're going to make our chocolate ganache topping. As you can see, we've got the butter melted, and we're going to add in the cocoa and mix that up. We're going to add in the powdered sugar and some milk and a teaspoon of vanilla. Cocoa going in. This gets all nice and smooth. All those cocoa bits are nice and mixed in. No chunks of cocoa anywhere. Nice and smooth. Then we're going to add in a little bit of milk. A lot of the powdered sugar. And our teaspoon of vanilla. And a little bit more milk. Some powdered sugar. It's been almost 30 minutes. They're looking good, ready to come out. Then we'll just let them cool here on the cooling rack for about 10 minutes. All right, while those are cooling, we're gonna go ahead and make our whipped cream. As you can see, I've got the mixer in there. The attachment with the bowl has been in the freezer, so very ice cold. Great for making heavy whipped cream. You want your bowl and your mixer to be ice cold. So again, our whipped cream is an entire carton, or 1 pint, 16 ounces, a teaspoon of vanilla, and a half cup of sugar. And then you're going to whisk this on low. I always get on like medium for a little bit until it starts to thicken up. Once it starts to thicken up, then I'll do a taste test. And if it needs a little bit more sugar, I'll add a little bit more sugar. Otherwise, I'll just speed it all the way up to high speed and get it to thicken up all the way. I've learned that if you mix the sugar slowly, it really breaks down in the cream. A lot better than just going ahead and whisking it on high, full speed right away. All right, it's starting to thicken up, so I'm gonna go ahead and bump it up. All right, now that's the consistency we're looking for. And the flavor we want. Now that these have cooled down, we're going to use a steak knife. That's what I prefer. And we're going to cut the tops off, just the top. Okay, I'm gonna leave it right next to the puff. We're going to dig out this eggy center and leave a nice hollow spot for our filling. We've got our puff pastry shells ready. We can fill them with our chocolate pudding filling. Now that they're filled with chocolate pudding, we're gonna let them cool down a little bit, and then we're gonna top it with heavy whipped cream using, again, another cookie scoop. Scoop a dollop of whipped cream, put it on top. Now that they're all loaded with whipped cream, we're gonna put the lids back on and cover it in our chocolate ganache. Remember what I said about the chocolate ganache getting a little too thick, so I did have to add a little bit more milk here as it did dry out a little bit, and that way it'll be nice and smooth to cover the tops. There we go. That's the consistency we want. All right, all topped with ganache. And what I'm going to do for a final touch, dust them in powdered sugar. And there you have it. Delicious homemade cream puffs. And you can make different varieties. You can make a vanilla pudding with strawberries and berries. Done that many times for folks that love that. Some folks are allergic to chocolate, so just do vanilla. Dust them with powdered sugar, vanilla pudding, and berries as a filling. And excellent. Absolutely amazing.